All right, this is lesson 2.4. We talked about angle pairs back in lesson 2.3, and now today we're going to talk about measures of angle pairs. So the whole key is I can find the measure of angle pairs. All right, so if you remember, lesson 2 was on angle bisectors. And so one of the things that angle bisectors do is they create two equal angles. So we could write an equation where we set one angle equal to another angle if they're in algebraic form or something like that. Vertical angles we talked about, they are congruent. Therefore, their measures are equal. So if I have a pair of vertical angles, I can find their measures by simply setting those two equal to each other. Linear pairs, well, they are also supplementary. So if you see linear pair or you see supplementary, remember that they mean the same thing as far as measures go. Their measures add up to 180. So you can write an equation where you add two things together and they have to equal 180. And then complementary, well, that means they add up to 90. So you could write an equation where you add two things together and set it equal to 90. Okay, so these are kind of the tools that you're going to use. You're going to write one of these equations each time to try and help you find the answer to these questions that come up here. Okay, so this is called a workaround. Anytime you're given a sketch where you know one angle and we ask you to find other angles in the drawing, you know, we refer to it as a workaround, where you use facts like linear angles are supplementary, so they add up to 180, and vertical angles are equal. And so you got to start recognizing those pairs like I talked about before. And so what I notice in this drawing, before I even look at what they're asking me to find, I'm going to just start labeling things that I know the measure of. So this angle over here, KXS, is 43. Well, its vertical angle is this AXJ. It's the other half of that capital X, remember. So vertical angles make this big capital X like that. So it's the left and the right halves of that X that then are equal. So 43 was the right side, so 43 has to be the left side there at AXJ. So, and that's one of the angles they're actually asking for. So AXJ is 43 degrees. Well, then they ask for JXS. Well, I need to come up with some kind of relationship for those. Well, I remember linear pairs. So in the drawing here, AS is a straight line, and XJ, that ray, breaks up this side, this lower side of the drawing into two pieces, right? And this is a linear pair then. They form a straight line. So if one angle is 43, then I can say that, according to my equation, X plus 43 has to equal 180. So I know that those are supplementary. They add up to 180. So I can say, I'll call this X. I know there's another X there, ignore that. And then we'll subtract 43 from both sides, and that's going to give me the measure of the rest of this angle. JXS is going to be 137. Okay, just used linear pair. So this is 180 degrees. I know this much of it's 43, so this one must be the 137. Okay? It's called a workaround. Now, in this drawing, there's not enough information for us to figure out these two angles because we don't know anything about them. We don't have a vertical angle for them. They're not complementary. They're simply adjacent, but I can't say anything about what their measures are. So for this drawing, this is about all we could figure out. Example 2, it says XK. Oh, little information. I always got to read, right? So ray XK is an angle bisector. So this is an angle bisector. So hopefully when you hear angle bisector, you think to yourself that I have a pair of congruent angles. So this upper angle, CXK, was 32. So then the lower angle, KXS, is also 32. Find all the measures of the angles. No, all the angles this time. Okay. Well, now I know that there's a vertical pair of angles in this drawing. Here's that big capital X. So if the right half is 32. The left half is 32 as well. And then I know that this makes 180. Straight line, that's a linear pair, so they're supplementary. So I'm going to take 180, I'm going to say 32 plus, and I'll call this angle F, because I don't know what else to call it. F has to equal 180. And so I just subtract 180 minus 32. Or excuse me, yeah, 32. 180 minus 32 is 148. So this is 148 degrees. What about above here? What about this half of the drawing? That's also 180. And it looks like I already know 32 and 32 makes 64, plus, I'll call this G, equals 180. Well, I'll just subtract. 180 minus 64 is 116. And so this angle is 116 degrees. And that's all the angles in the drawing. So I used angle bisector, 2 equal angles, vertical angles, also equal angles, and then I used linear pairs, add to 180 to get the other 2 angles. Here's one without a drawing. It says 2 angles are supplementary. I'm immediately going to this, because I know when you add 2 angles, they equal 180 if they're supplementary. Well, I know that one of the angles is 57. I don't know the other one. I simply subtract, and I get 123. Okay, so minus 57 gives me 123. Okay? I didn't really tell you much at all. It just says find RAE. So you've got to examine the drawing as well, and look right here in the drawing, I see this right angle mark. Well, right angles equal 90 degrees, so I know that I've got 2 angles that add up to 90. One of them is 44, and the other we'll call X. I just minus 44, and that gives me 46. That's the missing angle. Okay? So you got to look in the sentence for information. You got to look at the drawing for information. You got to look for those linear pairs, those vertical pairs. Okay? You try this one. Stop the video. Give it a go. Come back. All right. Hopefully you've done that. AXJ, it has a vertical angle pair. Like it's half of an X, and here's the other half of the X. So this angle on the right is also 53. And now I know I've got this pair of angles here make 180. They're a linear pair, straight line here. So 180 minus 53 is 127. Here's a right angle mark. So I know these 2 angles make 90. So I'm going to take 90 minus 53. That's going to give me 37. And then I know that this side here makes 180. So I know 53 and 37, and I'll call this angle G again. Those 3 have to make 180, don't they? So 53 and 37, that's 90, plus G equals 180. Well, that's just a 90 as well. 90 degrees. So look at this. See this? There's a linear pair here. See this linear pair? Where this side is, where the right side is this right angle, and so the left side has to be a right angle as well. So that would have been a little faster for us to figure out, right? Lots of ways to do these. So just make sure you're doing good math and you should get it right. Here's an example for us. In the sketch, it says KJ and KL are opposite rays. That's just telling us that this is a straight line. Then it says KN bisects angle LKM. So when a drawing doesn't have labels in the angles, we can oftentimes put these little arcs in the mouth of the angles to indicate that that pair of angles is congruent. So we know that those are equal. So the fact that KN bisects, we remember that an angle bisector cuts an angle in half. So LKM has been cut into two equal pieces, and it's these two right here. Okay? So then we know that LKM, that's this entire thing, is 7x minus 5. And then NKM is 3x plus 9. Well, they want you to find the measure of LKM. Well, what else do we know in the drawing? Right? I mean, if you look at this, I've got 3x plus 9 on the left side. Well, these two angles are congruent, so this has to be 3x plus 9 also. And this is kind of like betweenness for angles. You know, like I've got two smaller angles that add up to this larger angle that are adjacent to each other. So I can kind of do like a, segment small plus small equals large here with angle measures as well. So I can go with small plus small equals large. So that means I got a 3x plus 9 plus another 3x plus 9 has to equal the large angle, which is the 7x minus 5. So on the left side, the 3x and 3x make 6x, and the 9 and 9 make 18. And then I'm going to move the smaller x value, that's the 6x. That's going to give me x minus 5 equals 18. And then I'll just add 5 to this side. And so x comes out to be 23. Now that's not what they wanted. They want to know the measure of angle LKM, which is 7 times 23 minus 5. So that's 161, I think. 23 times 7, 161 minus 5. Yeah, how about 156? Oops, better make a 1 first. 156 degrees is my answer. Okay, so we see this small plus small equals large scenario that we had with segments, right? Except this time it's with two smaller angles are adjacent and they add up to the larger angle. Find the measure of a pair of supplementary angles. So I read supplementary and immediately I do this. Thinking, okay, something adds to 180. It says one is 15 more than 4 times the other. Well, that means one of them is just x. And the other one is 15 more than means plus 4 times the other. The other was just the x. So there's my equation. Okay. And so I've got 4x and x make 5x plus 15 equals 180. That's adding the 4x and the x together. Give me 5x. Subtract 15. So 5x equals 170, 165. I'm going to divide by 5 there. And that's 33. Is that what they wanted, 33? Well, it says find the measure of a pair. Well, that means one of them is 33, and the other one, how about 180 minus 33? Since they're supplementary, or 147. There's my pair. Okay. Example 7 just says find the measure of JXS. But what do you notice in the drawing? What's the relationship between those angles? Well, the pair they've given me are vertical angles. They're separate halves of of the letter x. They're left and right halves, right? So I know the verticals are equal. So I'm going to set up an equation like this. 7x minus 45, 3x minus 5. I'm going to subtract 3x. Make my 3's a little better. That gives me 4x minus 45 equals negative 5. Then I'll add 45. 4x equals 40. And x is 10. But that's not what they asked for. So I'm going to figure out this angle over here. This is going to be 3 times 10 minus 5. So 30 minus 5 is 25. Now what's the relationship between these two angles? That whole thing is 180. So if I subtract 25 from 180, 70, 60, I get 155. Okay. Subtract 25 gives me 155. Example 8. The first of two complementary angles. Well, I see complementary, and I think boom, boom, equals 90. Okay. So the first, that means the first one is 6 less than 7 times the other. Well, 6 less than means I'm subtracting 6 from something. What am I subtracting 6 from? 7 times the other. Well, the other was x, so 7 times x minus 6 is 6 less than 7 times the other. Combine like terms, 7x and x make 8x minus 6. Add 6 to both sides. And divide. It says 12. Well, that's one of my angles then. 12 and 90 minus 12 is 80 is 78. So that's my angle pair. All right, you'll find some practice in IXL C4 angle pair measures. Try and get a SMART score of 90.